restaurant. With me tableside at Versailles, very pleased to welcome in two gentlemen with whom I share a distinction. All three of our names have appeared on ballots, albeit for different elected positions. To my left and your right, Pedro Garcia, the property appraiser for Miami-Dade County. And to my left, but your right, J.C. Bermudez, former mayor of Doral. Gentlemen, we thank you very much for your time. And Pedro, let me begin with you. Since you're the property appraiser, let me get your appraisal of this presidential race. What do you think is going to happen on Tuesday?
Well, that's a great question. This is, to me, I've been an American citizen since 1968. I've been in the election voting, but I'm really never seen anything like this year election. Hopefully, Marcos will be ahead on Florida. That's what he needs to complete to keep going. I don't believe he can go anything ahead if he doesn't win Florida. Trump has been a tremendous surprise to everybody, but I never seen really it's like an embarrassed election to see the way they debate and the way they treat all the information that they have to supply to the people.
J.C. Bermudez, it is a campaign that is interesting because not one but two Cuban Americans in this race. Ted Cruz has been to town. In fact, a few days ago, Carly Fiorina endorsed the Texas senator here in Miami. Did you ever expect to see a dynamic where there would be two Cuban Americans in the race for the Republican nomination for president?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't, and I'm very proud. I'm very proud of both of them, and certainly very proud as a Cuban American, and more importantly, proud of what they represent, which is the fact that both of them, from families that were fleeing a dictatorship, have been able to potentially reach a top spot in the United States of America. And I think that's one of the wonderful stories of this campaign. I know that we're focusing a lot, in particular after what occurred last night, on a lot of the negative things that have happened in this campaign. But I think that that's the beauty of America, at least for someone like me who has the same experience both of them have.
Unfortunately, as you know, I guess it was William Randolph Hearst who said, if a dog bites a man, it's not news, but if the man bites the dog, that is news. And while there's some positive things to talk about, unfortunately, JC, there is the specter of what happened last night in Chicago. The competing campaigns seem to be holding Donald Trump accountable for that situation. Do you believe that Mr. Trump is personally accountable for what happened last night on the streets of Chicago?
No, I don't think so. And let me tell you why. I've had the opportunity as the first mayor of Doral to meet Donald Trump when he bought the resort. So his bombastic personality is not the one that I knew when he first spent $250 million to buy the resort. But I will tell you this. I think that his words, incendiary as they are, may have led to some of that reaction. But the reality is that we as Americans, from both sides now, need to move away from this, shouting down the other point of view. I may not agree with some of the people that were there. I may not agree with some of the opinions that Donald Trump has. I certainly don't as a Hispanic. But having said that, as Voltaire said, I'll paraphrase Voltaire, I certainly will defend the right for those people to have their opinion. And I think it's not resolved by having an incident like what occurred last night. Do I think that his incendiary words on the campaign certainly have exacerbated the situation? Absolutely. And I think both John Kasich and Marco Rubio were correct in pointing that out. Having said that, it does not justify, keeping someone's First Amendment rights. And certainly there were people there that were there to hear Trump, may not even support him. They just wanted to hear what his point of view was. And I think that's what America's all about. So we as Americans need to go back to what this country was founded on. And this is not new, by the way. The election of 1800, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, those of us who love history know that this has been going on for a while. It's never been picture perfect. There will be many books written about this election, I'm sure. But I think, JD, we need to all as Americans go back to understanding the basic tenets of the great country we live in, and that includes respecting everybody else's opinion, even if we don't like it.
Well, it's worth noting that as property appraiser, you're dealing more with numbers than words. So I want to turn to the polling now for Florida. Yesterday, closest I saw the margin was about 6 points, Senator Rubio trailing. Some polls as great as 20-point margin. I believe the average from Real Clear Politics, something like 14.5 points. Can Senator Rubio close the gap, and how will he do that, Pedro?
He's going to need a lot of people to go out and vote, particularly in Miami-Dade County. It's a lot of voting, the votes right here in the county that they may help him. And the polls have been so different in big numbers from one number to the other one that is, I believe, it confuse everybody. But it's important that the people go out and vote, and let's see who's going to be the winner in next Tuesday. It's going to be very important for this nation, and we have to get together so we can make this nation go forward.
J.C., some people joke that the ultimate oxymoron is political science, as if there's a science to what we do with politics. But let me ask you this in all sincerity. Yesterday, Senator Rubio and his staff said to Ohioans, vote for John Kasich. If you're a Rubio backer, vote for Kasich to stop Donald Trump. Governor Kasich did not reciprocate. Is that emblematic of the disadvantage at which that Senator Rubio faces right now?
Well, I think it's emblematic of the fact that the polls in Ohio show that Kasich may be ahead, maybe not by much, but it may be ahead, and the polls in Florida show that Marco is probably behind, even though I think some polls have shown him a lot closer, and I think if any politician can pull it off in Florida, Marco Rubio is the one that could. But I do think that it's kind of like the famous Mitt Romney robocall, which was done for Marco Rubio and not necessarily for others. It is political science. As a political science major, everybody criticizes Machiavelli, the first great political scientist, and I think it's just it's indicative of the fact that there's a better chance that Kasich can win Ohio than Rubio can win Florida. At least that's what the polls show. Whether that happens or not, one thing is for sure: if both of them lose their respective states, I think clearly this becomes a two-man race at best. And at that point, the decision is going to have to be made by everyone as to whether or not to stop the Trump train. Everybody's going to jump on the Ted Cruz train.
Let me turn to politics and policy. President Obama, last year renewing diplomatic relations with Cuba. The president planning a trip now, in less than 3 weeks to Havana? The Castros are still in charge. Communism still in the ascendancy, sadly, in Cuba. What reaction have you seen here to the president's initiative?
We are mixed reactions. My main concern is we don't see anything coming from the government of Cuba to provide us that they're going to be any better for the people in Cuba. The dissidents have been hit, they've been jailed, and we don't see anything, and they've been telling everybody, we will not change, we're going to keep doing what we're doing, and everything we see is only one side coming from the government of the United States, and I believe it's something around there. I don't believe that Cuba was ready for the visit of the president at this particular time.
30 seconds, J.C., your reaction to the president heading to Havana.
Well, we who believe in democracy in Cuba as North Americans or Cuban Americans got to focus on changing Cuba. I really don't care what President Obama does, with the exception of the following fact. If he goes to Cuba, he must, if he believes in democracy like he claims he does, meet with the opposition, those that are fighting to bring true democracy to Cuba. It would be disgraceful if this administration didn't do that.
And we will have to end it right there. JC, we're going to ask you to stay in here. Pedro, we thank you very much for your time. It's very interesting to get all the different opinions. So much going on here on this Saturday before Super Duper Tuesday. What will happen? 99 delegates, winner take all. The scene is set as